All right, what's up, guys? Good morning, JMart. What's up, man? Happy Tuesday,
What's up? What's
man.
up?
Shoo, the Ravens dominant yesterday. I guess we could do a 3 hour pod on that. There's always things that aren't perfect, but um, the headline is Lamar, 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 Derrick Henry. Ravens look really, really, really good. I'm gonna break that down more when we get later in the week. We're gonna face the Browns, but in spirit here of recapping the entire weekend, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it, but give me your take. You're not a Ravens fan, just watching the game yesterday. Last time I think I asked you, you said Lamar, so I'm assuming it was Lamar again, but go ahead.
Yeah, the thing for them is the Lamar's ability to pass early in games, and because they're aware that Derrick Henry kind of heats up as the game goes on. So the fact that he's able to be so effective early in games, and then they can just lean on Henry just breaking a massive one because it basically happens every second half at this point. I don't know how you stop them on defense because Derrick Henry's going to get his every game. It feels pretty clear at this point that he's just going to find a way. And if Lamar's playing at this level, like might be the best version of Lamar I've ever watched. Like he looks like he's the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, as the defense, we're gonna force turnovers like that. It's gonna be lights out. Baker. That's what happens when you face Lamar and the Ravens. Is you try a little too hard, you force it. Baker went from stake-free football to him and Marlon Humphrey are best friends. So the Bucks, really tough loss for the Bucks. Didn't watch any of that Chargers Cardinals game. Played out exactly what you would like expect that game to play out. Just an ugly game. Chargers fans are now experiencing the Greg Roman offense, which is just going to pull your hair out. And eventually, Cardinals pull it out. Did you see any of it besides your stupid half a point loss? You're going to lead the country in half yard losses by the time we're finished here.
Kyler Murray is still really good. His ceiling's a little lower than I think people thought it was. You know, he's just a really solid mobile quarterback. Outside of that, that was a really hard game to watch. I turned it on after the Ravens game was kind of decided, and then the Bucks decided to randomly try and come back for no point in the
Ravens football. Watch the fourth quarter of a Ravens football game. It's 100% going to be entertaining. And now we're giving up onside kicks. This is great.
No, yeah, but no, the Chargers offensively, there's talent there, which is what's frustrating is that they have a lot of really explosive players. They're just not really using them in an explosive manner, which probably is a Greg Roman consequence. But yeah,
I said before the game yesterday, I was like, I'm not going to bet it, but I hate the standalone games where you feel like if you just asked any average person that knows football, who would you take in that game? And everybody's going to say the Chargers. And that's what I mean by that is like it was hard to find an argument to take the Cardinals. Now I could see you not betting the game last night, but once that's the case, I'm like, yeah, and the spread's only one. Shouldn't it be like 3.5? And so Cardinals win. And let's see. Let's go through it. I want to go through the NFL, kind of, just get your takes on a few different things that happened. But I'm gonna let you have as much time as you would like because you were on it. You nailed it. It's always a great feeling when you're right about a game, but it's a better feeling when it's your favorite team and you know all the players and you really think the game's going to play out, a certain way, and then it comes to fruition. I don't think you had Carson Beck having 3 interceptions, but the Georgia defense was amazing. Georgia dominated Texas. It was close for a second, but go ahead, give us your take on it and a victory lap because you were 100% right about it.
So the common belief in Athens right now is that the reason the defense looks so much better is a result of Kirby Smart calling the plays again. They're simply, I'll be honest, I didn't expect them to look that good. I knew the talent was there. I didn't expect in 1 week to just be able to become a defensive juggernaut again. I think that is a result of Kirby deciding the plays, deciding the scheme. I think the defensive coordinator definitely took a step back and it went more into Kirby's hands like it used to be in like 2021 and 2022. But the big deal for me was the fact that Texas' defense wasn't that good. It was a feeling I had going into the week that they hadn't played anyone, and the fact that they are there is because they have big name prospects and they're Texas. After playing a good offense, there are clearly holes in the defense. They did not look good up front. The Georgia offense ran basically at will, which is something they haven't done really all season. And if you're Texas, there's one thing you can't do, and that's like Carson Beck throw 3 interceptions and lose by more than 2 possessions. It can't happen.
Yeah, what's the deal with him? You haven't been as high on him the first couple of times we've talked about him. Is there a replacement ready? What's the deal?
So the backup quarterback is a guy named Gunnar Stockton, who I really like. I like Gunnar Stockton. He went to Rabun County High School in Georgia. He's supposed to be really good. I've heard from people that have seen the practices that he has been really not good.
Okay.
And they brought in a transfer from Arizona State. He was at Florida. I don't have his name right now, but he's more of a dual threat style, so it completely changed up the offense. The issue is that they are stuck with Carson Beck because there isn't a better option. Because at the end of the day, with Beck, outside of like 5 bad throws every game, he looks really good. It's just those 5 bad throws are so awful that they like 60% of them will typically result in interceptions.
What's the read on it? Because coming into the year, he's the Heisman favorite. He's supposed to be an automatic draft pick, automatic first-round draft pick. Do you think it's nerves? Could he just be having a bad couple of games, or he's just not as good as we thought?
It's nerves. I don't think the way I've been talking to my friends about it is Stetson Bennett. The reason he is going to be a legend at Georgia for the rest of his life, he was not that good in unimportant games because I don't think he really cared, to be entirely honest. I think he was just playing more open, trying more weird stuff. Like he just wasn't really fully focused. But when it was a big game, when it was Bama in the national championship game, when it was TCU, he was willing. He just went God mode, and every read was good. Every weird scramble that ended up with like a sideways pass and stuff worked out because he played up when the lights got bright. Beck doesn't do that. Beck you can tell he's nervous early in games because he plays terribly. It's just he doesn't feel comfortable. He could be at home, neutral site, on the road. He's going to do the same thing. And it is the reason I love Georgia. I'll say they're going to win the national championship when I'm talking to people casually. I don't really believe it with Carson Beck as the quarterback because I don't think he has that Stetson Bennett factor. I'd say Deshaun Watson was very similar to that in college. Trevor Lawrence did it a little bit too, where you close the door on them. You don't give them a chance out. You don't give them a way out. Carson Beck will open the door for them and say, here's the way out. Please go through it. And
what's the read then on the rest of the country? Because the Alabama-Tennessee game wasn't necessarily great football. I watched 90% of that game. I thought it was, a lot of sloppy football there. Is Ohio State and Oregon, are they better football teams than the teams in the SEC right now? Because if your gut's telling you Georgia's not going to win the whole thing, Alabama beat Georgia, Georgia beat Texas, Tennessee is is the best football being played in Ohio State or out west with Oregon?
So my interest, I really have a hard time defending it, but I feel confident that if Georgia and Texas played again, Georgia gets run through. I think Sarkisian is going to come out. The game script's going to be significantly better. If you watch the second half, you watched Texas kind of figure out how to score on Georgia. I don't think Georgia would be able to lock them down offensively like they did last time. I think you could see Beck having a little more confidence, but we are in a point where, like, is that a good thing? Because he's been questionable at best. I think Texas could still beat them in a heads-up matchup in like the semifinals of the playoffs. I think Ohio State still could. I do think that Ohio State and Oregon are two teams that are, for SEC teams, unknown variables because Oregon's look shaky at times, but at the same time, they've just kind of won, and they've done a really good job of doing it. They have a former Georgia coach as their head coach in Dan Lanning, so it's possible. I do think, though, that Georgia has a mistake game in them, and that's the bigger thing. I think they're the best team in the country. I think they will have a game where they stumble just like Bama, and it will be in the playoffs, and it'll probably, stop them from winning it all.
Well, good. Appreciate you explaining all that, giving your perspective. Sounds like it's going to be wide open here for the college football playoff, which from a gambling perspective should be fun. We'll try to figure out what the heck's going on in college football as the season goes on. I'll tell you, the quality of football is getting a little bit better now that we're headed, I guess midway through October, getting halfway through the season. And as we transition to the NFL, starting to see certain teams kind of gel, put it together. And the team I wanted to start with was the Packers. They get a nice win against the Texans, but maybe more importantly than just getting the win is how they won the game. And the thing that jumped out at me was they stopped the Texans at the end of the game, forced them to the field goal. So they were able to get the ball back. Then Love comes down and they execute. And then after the game, it was almost like, at least my read watching it was it felt somewhat predictable and somewhat easy. And like the Packers have now crossed over. I think the Texans are in a good spot. So I wanted to start with that game as we kind of play a game with you of who you could see winning the Super Bowl as we're about halfway through. Both of those two teams are on my list of I really could see them win the Super Bowl. Do you agree? disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
The big thing I think for the Packers is that Jordan Love hasn't looked the best to start the season off. He's been pretty turnover prone. He's been a little shaky for sure. But you're right, they're still winning games. And like if they can win through a tough stretch for Jordan Love and he can kind of get going, you can kind of see like some of the end of the season last year version of him. They become a really dangerous team. They have the defense to win it all. Josh Jacobs is more than good enough as a lead down back, and they have the unique ability of having three receivers that are all kind of at the same level. No wide receiver one, which means defenses can't target any of them, and they're all game breakers in their own right. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, that they're all so explosive with the ball that you kind of have to script for all of them now, or you got to just pick one and take them out of the game, which I think is what Houston tried to do with Jaden Reed. Is I think they kind of tried to take him out, but that doesn't work now. So they're the most unique offense in football, in my opinion. I kind of love the way that they're set up.
Yeah, I love Josh Jacobs a lot. I love the way he's running. But on the other side, as we, it feels like we've narrowed it down. Last week we had the conversation: Bills, Texans, Ravens, Chiefs. Are a class above everybody else. After the Bills added Amari Cooper and just watching Stroud, I could see both of those teams winning the Super Bowl. Really impressed with Texans in a loss. Like, yeah, they lost the game. To me, it's whatever. Like, they're going to be there at the end. I saw a lot of things I liked. They still, I don't know if you can trade for an offensive lineman. It's usually a weird thing to trade for in the middle of the season. But their offensive line is just, yeah, Stroud's got to maybe grow up a little bit and be able to have some better checks. But I love the Texans. And then the Bills, the best bet of the day was the Bills in the second half on Sunday. They look like they're asleep because they were all excited for the Jets. Like, that game played out exactly if I told you that's how it was going to play out, I'd be like, yeah. And so the Bills, Texans, Ravens, Chiefs all look like they can win the Super Bowl. I don't necessarily need you to confirm that. But is there a dark horse team? The Steelers, with the Bengals winning? Is there one other team that might not win the division necessarily, but that you could see winning the AFC? Or is it just between those four?
If there is one, it's the Steelers with Russell Wilson. I know it's one game, and you got to remind yourself of that, and you got to see a bigger data size to actually make a decision. But they looked incredible in offense once they let Russ kind of start throwing the ball a little more. Mm-hmm. He looked so good. I'm mad they benched Fields because he went to Georgia for a little bit, and I really want it. And he was a Bears quarterback, and I want what's best for him. But there's a reason they did it. Russ looked just incredible. It kind of felt like a late 2010s version of Russell Wilson in that game. Najee Harris is looking pretty solid. Jalen Warren's a really good option in the backfield as well. It's very unlikely, but they have the defense to do it. And if the offense is just good enough, they could make it through. They could shock the world. They're a team that can beat the Chiefs. They can beat the Texans, Bills.
Yeah, the Steelers are, I was going to say, you hit a couple good points. They're the team that if they got hot, they could win 3 in a row, whereas it feels like the Colts, same thing with the Chargers because of the way they're built. I know last night wasn't a good game, but they play consistently. Whereas you could see the Colts, Bengals, Jacksonville sneaks into the playoffs, winning one game in the playoffs. We're like, man, Anthony Richardson's amazing, or Flacco. But to win 3 games in a row, you have to have an identity. That's what makes me lean on the Texans because the identity is, yeah, we're going to run the ball with Joe Mixon, and every 3rd and short, Stroud is going to convert. It's 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s is where the Texans get themselves in trouble. But if it's 3rd and 4, outside of the Ravens, I like the Texans there, even more so than the Chiefs. But let's go to the Chiefs. Chiefs can win the Super Bowl. We're not going to break any news here. I think the Niners are eliminated for making the Super Bowl. I genuinely do. I came away from that game thinking they don't have to win. They could lose the way the Ravens lost in week 1, which is oh, man, they're still not better than the Chiefs. But you came away from week 1 with the Ravens game, and you're like, all right, they can hang with them. Obviously, likely just speaking of which, sorry about my stupid 0-2. I should just watch the damn game yesterday. But anyway, likely was amazing in week 1. Yeah, so you come away from the game thinking the Ravens could hang. You came away from the Chiefs-Niners game Mahomes. The Chiefs could have won that game by 50 if they wanted to, or they could have. The Niners looked awful. Now Ayuk is out. The Niners get the Cowboys at home on Sunday night. Am I overreacting? I know that's the popular segment on Mondays and Tuesdays to overreact, but I got the Niners officially eliminated. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they win 1 game, but I did not see them getting all the way through.
I agree. They're too hurt. I mean, the talent on that roster is more than capable of doing it. But no McCaffrey, Ayuk's out. Debo has pneumonia now, which is some of the craziest news I heard yesterday.
Right.
Dre Greenlaw's still gone. Like the defense is banged up beyond belief. Like you're asking Brock Purdy to go out there with no weapons and try and lead the offense there. And he's just not one of those quarterbacks that can really put a team on his back. He does need the weapons, and it's okay. And he's great with the weapons, but he needs to have them. I don't have him. Yeah, I think they can be a playoff team. I can see them sneaking in a wild card spot or even somehow still winning the division, but they just don't have the talent to compete with the best.
Why is Jared Goff the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life? Is this what is happening here? Because that Lions Viking games was amazing. Goff's been amazing. He was amazing against the Seahawks, making my Seahawks look a little better because they shut down the Falcons. And Goff did to Seattle, did to Minnesota what he did to Seattle, which is make every pass in the pocket. I mean, that's quarterback 101. Lamar, best quarterback to watch. Mahomes, best quarterback alive. Stroud, super clutch. Goff is like, if you just tried to show a 12-year-old how to play football, it's like everything is like right on time. Lions win. Takeaway there, are the Lions the best team in football? I know that, I mean, geez, they really could have won that game. I don't know if you saw it, but they almost had a return for a touchdown off of fumble, but the Vikings guy went right out of bounds. So I know they had to come back and win, which was impressive in itself, but they actually dominated that game for most of it.
Yeah, this is a result of being able to keep two incredible coordinators on board a year after they probably both should have had head coaching jobs. The ability to just pull Ben Johnson back for another season is just so great. Like he is one of the best offensive scripters in the NFL right now. He's so good at what he does. He has Goff so comfortable in that pocket, and he also has the blessing of just having a loaded offense. Montgomery is having a career year. Gibbs still looks like the game breaker that we all think he is. Laporta's been down, but it's not really been because he's been bad. They just haven't really needed to go to him. He's in kind of a similar position as Travis Kelce last year. He can be that distraction option in the middle because they have Jameson Williams. Well, he's out for 2 games now.
Yeah, what's up with it? I was going to say, so first of all, Laporta's probably their best weapon. I mean, at least second best with Brown, but he's not being featured. In same thing with Mark Andrews on the Ravens. Like you got to watch the film to understand how teams are covering them. So if they're not getting the ball and the team is still cooking, that's a really good sign. So Jameson Williams, he gets suspended for 2 games. Would you have won the national championship in 2021 if he doesn't get hurt there?
No. You can ask a Georgia fan, and if they tell you yes, they're lying. I had nightmares about Jameson Williams after the SEC championship game.
Would he catch like a 50-yard long play or something?
He caught everything. It was like we didn't have defensive backs. We tried to cover him in man coverage the entire game, and he was just burning every corner because he's the fastest guy in the field. No, Jameson Williams, I love him. He's a great player. Maybe there's some personality issues that he needs to deal with at this point.
Gambling and steroids.
He's one away from the trifecta for just being not a great person, but an athlete. But, yeah.
The Lions, I was saying, coming away from the weekend, it's like there's the Lions jumped out at me. The way the Packers won jumped out. The way the Niners lost jumped out at me. The Bucs getting their injuries yesterday to Godwin and Evans. And then Baker, that was a little bit. But then, do you want to overreact to some of these games? Like the Falcons lose they get their ass kicked by the Seahawks. So we can go through each game, but I want to get you. You got school, you got some other things to do today, and the NBA is starting. So let's spend about 5 to 10 minutes on this. You have convinced me, and some of my research has convinced me that the NBA is going to be a little bit more entertaining this year. I think we're going to have less fouls. I think it's going to be much more entertaining from that perspective. So I'm ready to go all in and pay attention to the NBA. I'm going to have a couple future bets for win totals, A, to deter myself from betting in the middle of the regular season, and B, to have some entertainment. So I have a couple of some thoughts, but the floor is going to be yours because you'll add your NBA bets to the chat the same way you've been doing your football bets. And so I'm curious to kind of get in your head, see what, I know you're going to do a lot of player props, but yeah, tell us first kind of what bets to expect from you, and then we'll go through a couple of your preseason bets. And NBA starts tonight. What we got? The Knicks Celtics. Is it Knicks Celtics? And then Timberwolves Lakers, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead. First, what type of bet should we expect from you when it comes to the NBA?
So I've made a rule for myself with the NBA that I'm going to hold myself to no matter how good a line looks. I don't bet on role players. I don't do it. I'm not going to bet on a guy that isn't starting, and I'm not going to bet on guys that are kind of like the fourth or fifth option when they're starting. Even if the matchup looks good, they might just not get the ball. You got to realize that even if they've been historically good against an opponent or against a defense or against a specific player, there's just a high possibility that they don't get the shots that they need. They don't get the touches they need. Life happens. That I'm gonna try and reduce the variance specifically with NBA because it is so unpredictable that you need to kind of take the safest options possible. The people that, like, if the line's 25, you know that 9 out of 10 times they're within 23 to 30. That's what you need to kind of be sitting at.
Will you fade? It seems like when it comes to the best players in the NFL, you're betting their overs on their props. Will you ever fade these best players in the NBA, or is that just not entertaining for you to watch the under in James Harden and the under in Kyrie Irving and the under in Luka?
I will take the under in specific spots, specifically with guys like Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's a guy that looks really bad sometimes, and so you can kind of see him going under. Jokic is another guy that can just not really be involved in a game at points, so he's a guy that you can target because the line will be super high because of his potential, but you can see him going under.
Sorry, will you do under in just points, or do you typically do like points, rebounds, and assists?
Yeah, I mix it up. I'll bet a points line straight up. I'll bet a rebounds line straight up. I'll bet assist. I'll bet all three combined. I'll bet fantasy score, blocks, 3-pointers made. Wherever the value is, I'll try and be there.
And will you also do over-unders and lines? Like if you like the game tonight, you can just do Celtics -5.5, or do you stay away from that?
I've had horrible luck with betting on that. I bet on a Pistons to lose in a game that they won last year. Okay. And so as soon as that happened, I realized I had to step away from it. I think it was their third win of the year. So
you're more player. So all of your bets will pretty much be player props.
Yeah. If I can find value in a game, if I'm looking at the game lines and I'm like, they have the Hawks losing by 12 for some reason, if they were to have that, I would probably target it, but it would need to definitely be one where like I just look at the line and it stands out to me. No research. I see the line and I'm like, that's just a ridiculous line kind of thing.
Cool. All right. So we look forward to that. Let's go ahead. Shoot me over some preseason thoughts, preseason bets. What's the first one that you got?
So Hawks over on win total. The line was at 36.5. I believe.
Over with the Hawks. Everybody, just so you know, that was the most profitable bet for Vegas last year. Was most people, because Quinn Snyder joined I know my Quinn Snyder. I love his offense, the advantage offense in Utah that he brought there, and everyone lost money on the Hawks last year because they sucked. Now you're going back to them over 36.5. Make the case.
I think DeJounte Murray and Trae Young in the backcourt was terrible. I think it was just holding the team down. Look back to Trae Young, and I believe it was 2021 when he went on like the ridiculous postseason run, killed the Knicks, killed the Sixers. It was basically by himself in the backfield. He had guys, but they were more front court options. He's better when he kind of entirely controls possession up top.
So who's their second best player this year?
I'd say Jalen Johnson, power forward, him or Clint Capella. And they also, the big deal with the Hawks is they had the first overall pick. Everyone kind of forgets about it because it was a pretty terrible draft, but they have a guy, Rissashar, that has looked pretty good in preseason. He looks like he could be a really effective wing piece, and that's huge next to Trae Young because he's a guy to reach out to. The shooting's been there. Statistically, last season it wasn't. It has kind of been there in the preseason. I think it will develop to be good enough, at least, to complement.
So you're betting on it. So this sounds like a Trae Young bet.
Yeah, because he is one of those guys like Russell Westbrook where the floor is so egregiously high because of how he plays that he will get your team to around 500. I think the line's fair. I think with the pieces around him, he can easily have them winning 50% of their games this year.
I like Quinn Snyder a lot. I think the only argument you can make for Trae Young and the Hawks is DeJounte Murray was in the way and it was roster construction. So they cleared out. They get rid of John Collins also. All right, you're on the record for the Hawks. What's the next one?
Suns under on win total. The line was at like 48.5.
Wow, everyone's got the Suns over with Budenholzer comes on board. So you got the under. Why?
Look, Mike Budenholzer was a coach in Atlanta for a couple of years. I watched him play. He's great. He is great. I just don't think this Suns team is going to figure it out in a stacked West. I think if you were to like hold a gun to my head and say, who are the top 5 teams in the West, the Suns name does not come up for me. I was checking the roster before this started. I saw that they added Tyus Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Tyus Jones takes them to that next level where they are actually going to be one of the contenders. I don't see it happening. I just don't think it works there. I think there's too much high-end talent. I don't think there's enough depth talent that they need to be able to compete for a full season. If Kevin Durant and Devin Booker go down, I don't know how they win games.
Yeah, I 100% agree in the playoffs. I don't like their team. I feel like there's a ton of motivation for them in the regular season, so I'm a little anxious about fading them in their random January nights and December nights and February, like against these bad teams where I think they didn't take it. I think they were humiliated last year, and Durant's been humiliated. I don't know if he's self-aware enough to know where he actually ranks in the basketball world. But it's not as high as he thinks he is. Like he's got a really high opinion of himself. I think Bradley B. Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I want to see it. So all right, you got under with the Suns, over with the Hawks. What's the next one?
This one isn't a win total one, and the odds are ridiculous. They're plus 360. But I do kind of love the idea of the Spurs making the playoffs this year. I think that Chris Paul with Wembanyama definitely taking a step forward is going to be a problem. And I think Chris Paul, the big issue everyone had with the Spurs last year is that they're not getting the ball to Wemby enough. They have a guy now.
Yeah, sorry. Finish your thoughts. Sorry.
They have a guy now that will literally only exist on that court to get the ball to Wemby. And I just, again, the thing with him is I don't know how you guard him. I really don't think you do. I think you're looking at just a really big season from him, probably one of the best two-way seasons we've seen since probably just Giannis's DPOY MVP season a couple years back. But I think it's more about the odds being kind of nice. I think they're really fair odds for where the Spurs are at. And I think it's good value to take. It's a good risk to take in maybe half a unit kind of betting, but it does feel pretty nice to me.
Yeah, if you swapped out the Spurs for like an Eastern Conference team, I think the Spurs would make the playoffs. I think the East, they would sneak in there. The West is really loaded. Yeah, with Popovich, I'm not a big fan. His arrogance drives me insane. What he did last year was basketball malpractice. The roster they put out there was malpractice. Like it really was. It was. I don't know what he's doing. I cannot stand people that announce they're the smartest guys in the room. It makes me want to poke a hole into that. And I'm just like yelling Tim Duncan at the television or anybody that wants to listen because, yeah, I'm not a Popovich fan. Not a big fan of telling people how to vote, how to think. Hate that kind of shit. I hate what he did last year to that Spurs. I would just randomly rant in the middle of like podcasts about like what is going on. Because you're right. Wembanyama, like when you can't compare somebody to somebody, like we watched last night with Lamar, it's like, okay, there's only a handful of these people in the whole world where you literally don't have a comp. And Wemby was good enough last year that they could have won half the games. So yes, he did it this year. I don't know if it's him or the owner or somebody, but yes, Chris Paul will help. I don't know if it gets him into the playoffs. It's a really loaded Western Conference this year. But okay, plus 360, that's your bet. And what's your last one? You said you had 4, right?
Yeah, 4. The reason I think it clears out and opens up is, again, I'm low on the Suns. I wanted to say the Rockets were going to go under their win total and not make the playoffs.
I don't like the Rockets.
I couldn't exactly talk myself into it as well as I could for the Warriors to not be able to for the Warriors to go under on their win total. Pardon me. I think it was at
Warriors
43.5. We need to accept the reality that it's done. It's been done for a couple years now. They won the chip. It's been done since then. It's not there. Klay Thompson's not there anymore. I think there's a shockingly high chance that Steph Curry ends up traded this season.
Whoa.
Value for him. I know everyone would hate it. The simple thing is this Warriors team is not built to win in 2024.
Really?
They get hurt a lot. I think they're too old. I think the bench is fun. I don't think the bench wins games. And if you're telling me that they're supposed to win 44 games, again, in that Western Conference, you're asking a lot. You're asking a really high margin from them.
Wow. You surprised me. I did not see that one coming. I like the Warriors this year. I'm hearing what you're saying, so I will look forward to watching. I don't think I feel strong enough to bet them on the over. But if you made me bet, I would bet them on the over. I thought Clay was getting in the way last year. You don't think he was just kind of in the way and everybody knew he wasn't the second best player? And now that he's gone, just makes it a lot easier to not have a second best player?
The issue was when they would bench him and then start him, there'd be a couple games where they looked pretty solid, but then it would just go back to kind of being the same stagnant system. And I do think the issue is that they were the best when they had a bigger body that was able to really compete offensively. It was normally Kevin Durant. They don't really have that right now. They don't have someone up top that I look at and say, I get Kuminga's good. I don't think Kuminga is good enough with Steph being older to shoulder enough offensive burden to be able to kind of lead them to being an above 500 team.
All right, here's my hot take. The guaranteed money. Tell me if I'm getting something wrong here. The Wizards total is 20.5. This Cooper Flag guy, I don't think we're going to miss on him. If you have your own pick and you have the roster that the Wizards have, how in God's name are they winning 21 games? Isn't the plan to get the first pick? I have the same thoughts with the Raptors. The Raptors are at 29.5. They have a much better roster than the Wizards, but that doesn't say much. I think the Raptors roster sucks. The Brooklyn Nets, those are the three teams that – now Brooklyn, though, I'm nervous about because for some reason I feel like Ben Simmons is going to be like amazing this year, and like Brooklyn might win too many games because they never can figure out what they're supposed to do. But I would be 1,000% positive that the meetings for the new Wizards people that are running the show is we have to get this first pick. So I got under on the Wizards and under on the Raptors. And I think the Knicks, Thunder, and Timberwolves wins are too high for whatever that's worth. So those are mine. Any ones you like, don't like. But my favorite has to be the Wizards. Like, they have to do something to change that franchise. So they can't – they just have to lose. That's my thoughts. Pistons have been losing too many times. Sorry, go ahead. But the Wizards.
Yeah, I like the Wizards pick a lot. It was one I was looking at with the Raptors and the Nets. I do agree. When I was looking at the Nets pick, I was like, they're going to find a way to fuck this up. Like, they're just going to find a way to win 35 games for some reason when they should be tanking. But no, I do love the Wizards. I thought about it. I stayed away from it because it's such a low bar. And I get it's really high for the Wizards. Like, you're asking a lot from them to be able to go out and cover it, and I don't think they even want to. But, yeah, I do like that pick. I don't think Sarr is going to be I think he'll be fine. I think he's not going to be as bad as people think, but I don't think he's going to also be as good as people projected. He's going to be kind of in that middle area where defensively you're happy with him out there. Offensively, you kind of just want to close your eyes. Like, it'd be like early Gobert in his career where it's like you just really don't want to watch the offensive possessions.
I want to watch Jordan Poole off the court. I want to know what kind of conversations he's having with his friends. I'd be like, dude, I just robbed everybody. This is great. Like, if he get punched in the face, he's got the best story because he got hot for a couple weeks on an amazing team. And all right, cool. I'm gonna let you run. Thank you for joining me as usual on Tuesdays. Sorry you went 1-1 yesterday because I don't know why you have to lose by half a yard on all your bets, but that's life. So good luck for you this week. I shall be here in the morning, starting to get ready for this Dodgers-Yankees series. So looking forward to that. And talk a little bit NBA tomorrow. I'm going to watch both these games tonight and hopefully become a fan again because last year they turned me off. So we shall see. You have a good day, and I'll see you next week.
All right, see you.
All right, man.